she's in hospital.
Sorry?
Sure.
So the minister is not here and the deputy also is not. So,
Yes.
but as the report, we can take it from the DG anyway. It
Sure.
doesn't. And anyway, money responses to this comes from the DG's office in most instances. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I don't think it's a train smash. We'll just have to check what the members will say.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Chair. Let's wait for...
And the quorum, are we forming a quorum?
For now, there's 3 members, Chair, yourself, Honorable Gillion, and Honorable Ndongeni. But it's still 8 minutes to go.
Yep. Okay, we'll just wait and see if we're forming a quorum.
All right.
All right, sure.
All right, Chair.
Yeah.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm sure I'm going to be late. I'm connected, but I'm on the way.
You on there?
Hello.
Hello?
I'm still on the way, Chair.
You're still on the way? Oh, no, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'm going to be stable on around about 5 minutes.
Okay, no, sure. Then we can start the meeting. We'll get us.
Sure.
How many are we now? 4?
4, yes, Chair. We only short of 1 member.
No, Tando, did you count? You've counted me, Malika. I'm connected.
3 o'clock now.
It's
And
3 o'clock now, yeah.
Yes, and the meeting does form a quorum.
Okay, thanks a lot, Noltando. Good afternoon, honorable members, and good afternoon to the department. This is a meeting of the select committee to look at the report of the department as to what they did in the past financial year in terms of the goals that they set themselves, and also the finances, the budget that we passed. They'll give us a report on how that budget was used. DG, welcome to the meeting. Can you fly the agenda for us, Mayor?
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and good afternoon to the honorable members of the Select Committee.
Thank you. Welcome, DG. And there's the agenda, honorable members. Opening and welcome by the chairperson. The presentation. And then the last one will be an in-house thing. We'll release you by that time so that we look at the internal matters of the committee. There's the agenda. Any addition to this agenda? If there is none, any move of adoption of the agenda?
Christians move to adopt, Chairperson.
Oh, yeah. Honorable Christians move. Any seconder?
Malika second.
Malika seconds. Thanks a million. Our members, let's move to apologies. We have two main apologies here. That's the minister is out of the country, accompanying the president, and the deputy minister is in a meeting. There's a 3-line whip in the NA. I think they're discussing the DORA, so it is important that she be there. So because this is a question, this is a meeting of the committee to get the reports on our achievements as this committee, as the department with our committee. Do members find these apologies in order before we continue?
Yes, yes, Chair, let's. Hello?
Honorable Ndongeni.
Okay. Let's take the apologies. Let's accept the apologies.
Okay, no, thanks. If there's no objection to that, I'll move. Are there further apologies for this meeting?
Yes, Chair, there is an apology from Honorable Lutuli. She is hospitalized.
Oh. Okay. Oh, no, yeah, no. May she get well soon. No, thank you. There are the apologies, honorable members. I think we should just get into the program now. Where I am, I'll have to leave at 5 o'clock because I'm squatting at the late honorable Joyce Maluleke's office because of network challenges. Without much ado, let's move on to the presentation by the DG. Welcome, DG, and your team. We're waiting for your report about what happened with the budget and the programs that we supported in the last financial year. Over to you, DG.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. And again, good afternoon to all the honorable members of the Select Committee. We have in my team, in this meeting, I've got the Deputy Director General and DDG Khan, Sumaya Khan, responsible for what we call Program 2, and that has more to do with
recording in progress,
recreation and sport development. And then I've got DDG Mandi Sachikotamba, responsible for corporate services. I also, Chairperson, have got DDG Kumalo, responsible for arts, culture, promotion and development. And then I've got the acting CFO, who is Ms. Mondele. In the meeting also present is Dr. Sakiwo Chiso, who is responsible for strategy planning, monitoring and evaluation in the department. Of course, then I've got for Program 4, which is Heritage Promotion, is Currently is represented by Mr. Ivan Langefeld, as DDG Ndema is off sick also. So that is mainly the team. And then I've got from my side in my office both Lordwick, who will be flighting the presentation, as well as Bonge Ramalepe, who is acting director in the office of the Director General. In a nutshell, Honorable Chairperson, that is the constitution of the team. Our presentation, Honorable Chair, is in two parts, but I would like just to indicate that we have tried to decipher the information where possible so that the honorable members will have a sense about what it means for their provinces. In terms of the breakdown per provinces, we've got that as an addenda that should the members want to need the breakdown, we should be able to share that with you. So the presentation is in two parts. The first part is in relation to the performance, and the other part is in relation to finances, as Chairperson has aptly captured it. How do we have the outline set out? Is that we outline the purpose with the introduction, then we provide performance overview, departmental performance overview results, as well as overview of specific programs that we have, which is 4 of them in the department. And then, of course, we'll table the expenditure report. Chairperson, if we then proceed to the next slide, we just want to indicate that the context under which we're presenting this report has been that we have faced a number of challenges in this regard around the COVID-19. So we want to just table this as to how did we perform to the select committee, and then this is also then required by law in terms of accountability and providing the select committee to do its oversight. What were the context and circumstances under which the plan was delivered? Was that of the onset of the COVID-19, which then resulted in the state of emergency, and there is a consequent. We then had to deal with the issues of lockdown.
Yes, because there's no other body here. Turn on your right.
Hey, can we have one meeting, please? Can people mute their phones?
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. So we had those challenges of lockdowns and restrictions that were varying from level 1 to level 5, impacting on then the performance and work of the department. We also then had to look at risk-based relaxations, where if the relaxations were available, how then do we respond to ensure that we still deliver. Budget cuts became the order of the day, particularly in redirecting these funds, reprioritizing them towards saving lives, particularly in the towards the Department of Health, rather than the other businesses, but also in terms of relief efforts department had to undertake. And then, of course, we had to adjust the plans almost at 3 levels so that we are able to respond to the new normal. And that is why then the report will be presented as per guidelines of the DPME. But Chairperson, if we then, what did we do when we had this onset of COVID? We had to do what we call some surveys through our cultural observatory, which is a research arm of the department, on both the CCIs, which is cultural creative industries, as well as the sports sector. Under just the synopsis at a high level, under cultural industries, the respondents that we got, 95% of them had reported that due to the onset of this COVID, they had to either cancel or indefinitely postpone their work, while 11% of businesses indicated and freelancers clearly indicated that they would be able to continue with about 60% or more of their normal businesses, while the 45% was clear that they could not continue at all. And then 38% of the employers, they indicated that they were ending employment of short-term contract workers or informal employees. Then when we just did that survey also on the sports sector, 83.7% of the respondents indicated they would only be able to survive for a period of about 6 months under the current circumstances of a lockdown. And 89.8% indicated that they believed government was not doing enough to support the sports federations during the current pandemic. 42.9% of respondents indicated relief funding was their key priority in order to survive in terms of the support they needed from government. 34.7% indicated that an early return to play would be the best priority for them to survive than to live on handouts of government in terms of support. So what then transpired, Chairperson, was that we asked the sports federations about what were the main sources of their income, and we've got a breakdown there that indicated that the federations, 34 of them out of 49, said that they were getting money through national government and or lottery, and then through broadcast rights only 4, and then event revenue was 24 of those sporting federations, and then coaching only 3. Those who got income through sponsorship were 13, and those who got grants from international federations were 2, while those who survived on affiliation fees at most were 37. Now, what then did this mean for us was to then scale down on the issue of services as against the original APP plan, but also to then look at the planned medium-term outcomes not being achieved, and within the national initial time frames. There were projects that had to be halted and not be able to proceed while they had already started. Then athletes and artists not being adequately prepared for competitions, particularly nationally, such as Olympics and Paralympics. We then had economic hardships or loss of income that was devastating to the professional athletes, artists, and even those who are not professional. This then made it clear that there was a need for the relief, yet this was in the face of budget cuts from the normal activities of the department. Now, we had to then respond by revising the plans in terms of the original APP, and a thorough situational analysis was done to determine what could still be achieved in the face of these lockdowns, what needed to be reduced, and what it is that needed to be either completely abandoned or be deferred. But also we had to determine what are the new indicators that are going to be required so that the appropriation of the budget can then be spent in line with that. And that included the issues of then prioritizing response to COVID-19. Projections of delivery based on COVID-19 lockdowns levels also had to be made to determine what it is that we can still achieve throughout the APP period, and what it is that we needed to remove, and what areas can we deliver, and which areas were most affected and therefore regarded as hotspots. But also we had to look at capacity to deliver, as the staff had to work from home and sometimes needed then additional tools of the trade to do their work. But also we need to look at what other methods of delivery or modes of delivery can we use, like the initiatives relating to live streaming, as well as virtual meetings that we had to use. The re-engineering then of existing programs in terms of labor-intensive programs needed to be looked at in order to respond in terms of job losses that were quite prevalent at the time for the country. Budget adjustments also needed to be considered and be able to move according to what is available. And this department's budget was reduced by approximately 956 million rands. Chairperson, the next cycle is just indicating what I've just explained in terms of how did we respond. So I won't go into detail, but it just indicates that the summary of events, we were faced with an era marked by a lot of instability, uncertainty, as well as disruptions. But then we tabled in March the APP of 2021. Then we submitted again the operational plan that we had to finalize, and this was done. Then COVID struck just when these plans had been finalized. So then we had to reassess and do situation analysis of this COVID, and then we had to look at the impact on both the AOP, which is the annual operational plan, as well as the COVID situation. That was in May. We then had to revise the AOP to reflect these adjustments. Then, as we all know, National Treasury then had to also revisit the whole budget and have a new budget tabled as an adjustment budget in June. This revised budget then had to reflect on our plans, which were then revised, and eventually the revised APP was then presented to portfolio committee, and then that is then paving the way for implementing this APP. Honorable Chair, what we then have is that this report now tabled is in line with the guidelines that were later then provided for us after the changes that were implemented due to COVID. DPME provided their guidelines for compilation of this annual report on two levels. One, reporting at actual achievement until the date of the retabling, which was in March. Two, reporting on actual achievement from the second quarter until the fourth quarter. And finally, making a cumulative report in terms of the performance of the department. So I present to you, Honorable Chair and members, the performance overview.
Recording stopped.
Where we are indicating that 26%, we had 39 targets, of which 26%.
Recording in progress.
And that reflects as 10, and I will indicate the 10 in the next page. 74% was then achieved, which translates to concretely now 29 out of 39. Targets not achieved are the following. Number of services modernized, that is the automation of processes. 2, percentage of invoices paid within 30 days. The number of heritage legacy projects implemented. Then the number of resistance and liberation heritage route sites developed and managed. The number of capacity building projects financially supported. Number of provincial community arts development programs implemented per year. The issue of the number of moral regeneration movement projects financially supported, and the overarching social compact that we needed to conclude, the number of gender-based violence and femicide programs financially supported, and the number of artists placed in schools per year. We provide the detail then in terms of rationale behind each of the non-achieved targets, which is 10 out of the 39. Chairperson, how did then each program perform in the department? Administration had 5 targets and 2 were not achieved, translating to 40% against 60 that was achieved. Recreation, development, and sport promotion, which is program 2, we had a 2 against 12 not achieved, translating to 83% of achievement. While we have arts and culture promotion and development, which had 6 targets out of 16 not achieved, translating to 62.5% of achievement. And then, of course, the heritage promotion and preservation, which achieved all its targets, which was 6 out of 6 at 100%. I will then provide the breakdown in terms of administration targets. And then the first slide just indicates what constitutes administration of program 1, which is mainly ministry, management, strategic planning and management, corporate services, the office of the CFO, as well as office accommodation. The targets that were then set for this, firstly, is to indicate, Chairperson, there is an indicator that will indicate percentage of interns enrolled, and the originally planned as tabled originally was that it will be 5% of the staff complement. when we did the revision and read table, did we change this target? The answer is no. However, we were able to then achieve 5.8% of intents, which literally translates to 30 against 517 staff members, which is why then there is a plus 0.8% increase in terms of achieving this target. Number of services modernized, which is the original plan was for 2. Even after adjustment, nothing changed here. We still intended to achieve the automation of 2 processes. The 2 services that were not modernized, however, we had made progress in this regard. One was in relation to South African geographical names system, where we had a tender and the bidders were then invited to attend and participate during the bidding process. And there was then a briefing held only in February and on the 12th of 2021, where we had to resort to the use of the Microsoft Teams. And then the tender was closed on the 12th of March, and will only then evaluation process will now commence and be finalized in the new financial year, so that the system can then be finalized by the third order of the new financial year. Then for the call center consultation, it required extended consultation and people not being at work, and we constantly had to find opportunities to have this. Hence, then the tender processes and bid specifications delayed, resulting in this being moved to the second quarter of 2021-2022. And then on the issue of the administration target 1.3, this was in relation to awareness campaigns. This target was revised from 9 to 4. However, we were able to achieve 7, which is now having an overachievement of 3. And this is really mainly based on the department able to conduct these campaigns, as the 3 campaigns were in Q1 as per the initial APP, and then the 4 other ones were in the last 2 or 3 quarters, which is Q2 to 4, as per the retabled APP. Target not achieved was the issue of the invoices not paid in within 30 days. This is mainly based on one particular invoice that got delayed by 3 days, and the CFO will give detail in this regard. But the rest was done. How many invoices did we process was 1,496, of which then 1 of those was not processed, resulting in 99.93% of the invoices being paid within 30 days. Chairperson, on the issue of the target relating to the functionality of the boards for the entities, 100%, and all of the boards were properly constituted and were functional. Under Program 2, Honorable Chairperson, Recreation, Development and Sport Promotion. At a high level, this target, this particular program talks to sub-programs of Winning Nation, which is about elite athletes development, Active Nation, which is about mass participation, sport support, which relates to the integrated support systems in order to deliver sport and recreation. Then the infrastructure, which deals with provision of sport, recreation, arts and culture facilities, as well as technical support during construction, repair and renovations. How did we perform against this program? Good Chairperson, our indication is that the number of athletes that were supported through the scientific support program per year, this target was revised from 80 to 40, and all 40 athletes were then supported through this program. Then the next target was about athletes supported through the sport academies. Also, this target was revised because it involves participation of people, and it does not really lend itself well with social distancing and the issues of gatherings. So we reduced it to 1,850, but fortunately we were able to achieve a 2,249, which is 399 more than the revised target that we had. Then, of course, we had a target relating to number of sport and recreation campaigns and events implemented. The intention was 10 to do 2 after revising the target from 8, but we're able to do 3 more in relation to this, and they are big work, national creation, as well as ministerial outreach programs. Then the other one was the target that was revised drastically from 46,964 in terms of sport people actively participating in sport and recreation campaigns and events per year. We were able here, Chairperson, against a target of 2,400, achieved the 3,553 of people who participated in these programs organized by the department. That is an overachievement of 1,153. Chairperson, also then there was a target that was revised of the number of people participating in organized sport and active recreation events from 355,000 to 5,000. But fortunately, with the relaxations, we're able to do 58,439, translating to 53,439 more than was planned after the revised target. The number of schools, hubs provided with equipment and attire, the target did not change, remained at 2,500, and we're able to provide 5,324 schools, clubs, as well as hubs that were able to benefit, which was an overachievement of 2,824. Chairperson, we had also a plan, we had planned to have at least 50% or more of all prescribed charter transfer pin targets achieved by these 19 prioritized sporting codes. And we had 68.4% originally, and this target was not changed because at the heart of it is transformation agenda. So there are 19 federations that have to subscribe to the charter transformation targets. So under the in review, we had 16 of these federations who were audited and submitted their reports and achieved 50% or more of the 60% prescribed charter of transformation targets. However, 3 did not submit their data. Hence, then we are reporting against the 16 that was able to submit those reports. The number of municipalities provided with technical and management support, the target was not changed. They remained at 35, and 35 of them, those municipalities, were then supported during construction. The next target, Chairperson, is about the number of community gyms and children's play parks constructed so that we have an active nation. We fight the diseases of obesity, diabetes, and all these comorbidities by enabling conditions for exercise. We had planned 10 of these gyms, and 10 of them were achieved. And we're reporting that all of those then have been indeed put into completion by end of the financial year. The number of heritage legacy projects implemented, the target was 2, and the 2 infrastructure projects were not revised. So the implementation of these 2 legacy projects is still underway at the end of the financial year. And these are Sarah Bartmann as well as Inyogeni. We then clarify what is the challenge here, Honorable Chairperson, that with Sarah Bartmann, there were serious delays due to contractual disputes and payments between the contractor and the Public Works and Infrastructure Department. The Inyogeni Cultural Precinct, we entered into an MOU with the KZN Department of Arts, Sport and Recreation, and there was then a delay in there in terms of the MOU being finalized on time, and therefore then resulted in all the procurement stages being pushed back, and then it resulted also then into those delays being impacted upon by COVID-19 lockdowns for any construction to be initiated. Chairperson, number of provincial resistance and liberation heritage routes. This target was revised from 9 to 3, and the only 2 provincial resistance and liberation heritage routes sites were developed and managed, and that refers to the Winnie Mandela, which was achieved in terms of practical completion, as well as our Tambo Memorial site, which was also in terms of completion. The other one, which is Nelson Mandela House in the Par side, is the one that we had to first go through the feasibility study, and therefore we could not start with the issue of this site being developed and managed in the year under review. Honorable Chairperson, then the next target was in relation to the percentage of COVID relief applications from the athletes, coaches, and technical personnel being processed. All of them were processed, and those were successful, were provided with the relief. Number of learners in the National School Sport Championship per year, this target had to be discontinued. Because at the time, the only focus for schools due to the lockdowns and lost time in terms of curriculum delivery and teaching and learning was the focus on curriculum recovery. And therefore then school sport almost came to a complete standstill. The next program is Program 3, Honorable Chairperson. This is Arts and Culture Promotion and Development, which involves a lot of engagement and direct face-to-face events. This program is constituted of national language services, which promotes the use and equal status of all official languages in the country, and it includes the issues of developing what we call language terminologies, as well as human language technology, but also the issues of translation and editing services in all official languages, supporting anyone who submits such documents to the department, but also the awarding of bursaries. Then the sub-program also talks to the cultural and creative industries development. This is about support to the cultural and creative industries by developing strategies, implementing sector development programs, supporting sector organizations, as well as providing training support to arts and culture practitioners. Then we've got a component of international cooperation, which involves a number of engagements at multilateral and bilateral level in building continental and international relations through art, culture, and heritage. We then have got a social cohesion and nation building, which implements the national social cohesion strategy and brings targeted groups in arts, culture, and heritage, including arts and culture in schools, as well as the programs that relate to social cohesion that we need to implement as per the mandate of government under priority 6. Then we've got the big one, which is Mzansi Golden Economy, which is aimed at creating economic and job opportunities, but also is aimed at ensuring that we design programs that will help develop audiences who can attend to the artistic events, but also then create demand while we also increase market access for the creatives, as well as the issue of skills development. Lastly, Chairperson, it talks to the issues of support to National Film and Video Foundation as we do transfers to them. So what are their targets? Chairperson, the targets are a number of multi-year human language technology projects supported. This target was not adjusted, it remained at 6 and 6 were done. Percentage of documents received translated, the target have always been 100% to process what is received, and therefore then that was done. And then the number of bursaries awarded for the development of qualified language practitioners, and the target was also not adjusted at 300. Fortunately here, due to the cost variation between the universities, were able to do 186 more, therefore 486 was done. Then on the issue of the local and international market access platforms financially supported, this target was revised down by 50% from 12 to 6, resulting in 6 that were to be done, local and international market access platforms, and this was then achieved. The number of capacity building projects financially supported target was revised from 20 to 14, and 10 of these were done, which means 4 were not achieved, and therefore then this remained an underachieved target. Chairperson, the annual or the adjusted target could not be met because 2 of these envisaged capacity projects were only financed partially, in other words, not fully. And then the other 2 of these projects could not be initiated at all. So we were able to do 10 instead of 14. And then with a target of 9 for the number of community arts development programs implemented, we were able to do 8, and the 1 was not done as we reported as not achieved. And that is mainly due to the fact that we could not be meeting this target as 1 province, which was in the Western Cape, did not complete the implementation of its program within the year under review, and they could only be able to have this completed at the end of June 2021. Chairperson, the next target here is in relation to the number of international engagements. The target was revised from 20 to 7, and we're able to do 6 more, which translate to 13 that was done. And the overachieved target is mainly due to the projects that we regard as maybe ad hoc projects initiated by our international counterparts, and we're to make sure that we comply and meet and implement these projects. The next one, Chairperson, was not achieved is a number of moral regeneration movement projects financially supported. 5 moral regeneration movement projects were financially supported. However, our problem was that only 2 were able to be implemented, even if the budget was transferred. And these 3 that were not are mainly the issues of that were achieved, anti-femicide campaign, as well as a moral regeneration movement month of July. The other 3, which is youth dialogues, ethical leadership project, a charter of positive values, could not be done due to COVID-19 as they require a face-to-face engagement. The next target, Chairperson, was the number of community conversations or dialogues to foster social interaction, reduced from 20 to 10, and all of 10 were achieved. And then the other one was number of youth-focused arts development programs, revised from 4 to 3, and all 3 were done. And then the number of advocacy platforms on social cohesion, revised from 20 to 15, and fortunately 20 were still able to be done, and the target here was adjusted. However, the additional 5 advocacy platforms were implemented due to the opportunities that became available as the relaxations took place of the COVID restrictions. A social compact for social cohesion and nation building was revised. There were going to be 2 reports reported on its implementation. However, that was subject to the finalization of the compact itself and thereafter the implementation, and this could not be achieved as the compact could not be concluded in time. So West target was then not achieved. Honorable Chairperson, the number of gender-based violence and femicide financially supported target was 1, and this target was not achieved, although financially support was being provided. Out of the 3 projects that were planned, 1 was not fully implemented, and that project was a one called Project for the Boys. But the other 2 in this target were done, but because you need 3 to make it fully achieved, so then 2 out of 3 is not fully achieved. Hence, then we have reported it as not achieved. The number of projects in the creative industries supported through Mzansi Golden Economy, the target was revised from 88 to 12, And 13 of these projects were then done, which is an addition of one more. Noteworthy was that for completeness of the reporting, 18 projects, in fact, were supported. And of the 18, however, 13 were fully supported and 5 were partially supported. The next target was the number of artists placed in schools. As I indicated earlier, this target was not achieved as there was the schools had to prioritize curriculum development, and therefore then we couldn't place artists in schools. And then the number of reports produced by SACCO, the target was reduced to 13 from 16, and we're able to do, however, 17 due to the demand to do impact of COVID and research so that it can inform our practice in going forward. The number of public awareness activations, this target was discontinued, and that is why it is reported as such. The last program, Jefferson, is relating to heritage promotion and preservation. All the targets here were achieved, and what does it constitute? Sub-program 1 is heritage promotion, and this supports various initiatives and projects under heritage. These will include things like a transformation of the landscape of heritage through conceptualization and or equipping and operationalizing legacy projects. These will include the resistance and liberation heritage route, the relocation of statues that are an antithesis to our democratic values and constitutional principles, as well as the Baroque of heraldry, which talks to the national symbols, which also then deals with the issues of popularizing these national symbols. But this also includes the talk about the national flag, as well as the issue of awarding the national orders to the deserving eminent persons, but also then development and review of policies relating to legislation. The second component deals with National Archive Services, which is a memory of the nation that has to be stored and secured. And then, of course, it is upon the public library services, where we deal with the issue of transfers for the construction and or upgrading of libraries, but also provide budget for hiring of personnel, as well as purchase of library materials. The last component is, of course, the one that is well known about name changes, and the names that are not in line with our constitution. They are offensive and that need to be changed under the banner of South African Geographical Names Council. Chairperson, I indicated targets were achieved. The number of students awarded bursaries relating to heritage, 65 and 70 students were given bursaries. This is the same as I've indicated in terms of cost, and that you are able to then to get more to participate if one university offers a course at a lesser cost than anticipated. Fortunately, we've got an arrangement that then they will have a higher intake in that regard. The number of books documenting the living human treasures drafted, the target was 2. We were able to do those 2. This is where we do the decoding of knowledge and information from our living treasures, so that this information knowledge can be passed from one generation to another, should the unfortunate happen that they pass on. So who were these living treasures and whose books were able to be done? It's Ubaba Mkwako Enoch Mabiga, who deals with the carving out of his own way. That is what the book is called. And then, of course, Mama Beauty Ngongo, who deals with the issues of weaving. And the book is Weaving Wisdom into Art. So, Honorable Chairperson, the next target was about conducting the feasibility study on the monumental flag that we would intend to install in this country. And therefore, then this feasibility study was conducted and it has been finalized. Of course, then the next target was in relation to the number of heritage policies developed. One was targeted and one was done. And this policy is about repatriation of human remains and heritage objects. And this has been done and was approved by Cabinet as planned in the 16th of March 2021. The next one was digitization of records. We had a target of 50 and we were able to do 60 of these records that were digitized. And the 10 additional records that were just as a result of us having to be part of the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program. And this then gave us additional personnel to be able to do more of records being digitized. Then the last one was in relation to the number of newly built or modular libraries being supported financially. This was revised from 29 to 12. And however, we're able to deliver 33 newly built and or modular libraries. The additional 21 chairperson is as a result of the projects that had been financially supported but had not been completed by provinces. And then the provinces were able to complete these projects. And as a consequence, the 5 projects, as we talk of this 33, just to indicate the breakdown, that 5 were practically completed, and they are at Greenpoint, Chuweliche, Southspan, Boipatong, and Yuval. And then the 28 projects were financially supported and are at various stages of development. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The rest are those targets that were discontinued. I will then, Chairperson, request that my colleague, the acting CFO, takes us through the budget. Ms. Mondele.
Thank you, DG. Good afternoon, Chairperson of the Select Committee and honorable members. Good afternoon to colleagues from the department. The presentation that we'll be taking you through is the financial report as at the end of March 2021. This report, it has the departmental summary of the budget versus expenditure per program and per economic classification.
Excuse me, ma'am, if you don't have any challenges, could you switch your video on, your camera on?
That's
at least to see who we're talking to, if it's not a problem with your network.
Okay.
You are requested to show your face, CFO.
DJ. Yes, the presentation, it will also show budget versus expenditure per program and economic classification. Next slide. This is the summary at a high level, Chairperson, where in the department we've got 4 programs. Program 1 is administration. Program 2, recreation, development and sport promotion. Program 3, arts and culture promotion and development. Program 4, heritage promotion and preservation. And here we're showing the final appropriation of the final budget after all the adjustments that happened in the last financial year or the 2021 financial year. Program 1, we ended at 493,555,000 rand. That was the budget, and the expenditure thereof was 485.2, which translates to about 98.3% of the budget that was spent. Program 2, we had a budget of 1,055,949,000, and we spent out of that 982,787,000, which translates to 93.1% of that budget. Program 3, arts, culture, promotion and development, we had a budget of 1.6 billion and we spent 1.5 billion and translating to 97.7%. The last program, HPP, we had a budget of 2.1 billion and we spent about 2.1 billion, translating to 99.62%. In total, as the department, we had spent out of the budget that we had of 5.3 billion, we had spent 5.1 billion. And then the surplus or money that was unspent is 135.2 million, and that translated to 97.5%. This would be then showing the budget at high level, also per economic classification, where we've got the economic classification, compensation of employees, goods and services, transfers to provinces and municipalities that are your conditional grants, departmental agencies, those also are transfers, NPIs, foreign government and international organization, higher education institutions, households, public corps and private enterprises, those are transfers, heritage assets, machinery and equipment, software and other intangible assets, payment for financial assets or thefts and losses. And in the COE category, you moved fast. In the COE category, our total spending from the budget of 380.2 million, we spent 333.7, then translated to 87.8%. That is the total spending percentage. Goods and services, we spend about 95.6% of that budget of 483.6. Transfers to our provinces, that is our conditional grant to mass participation and library grants, we spend almost 100%, that is 99.29. Departmental agencies and accounts, these are transfers to our entities mainly. We had a budget of 2.2, we spent 2.2, which translated to 99.4%. NPIs, the budget where our federations are paid and other institutions or sporting recreational bodies that are paid, we had a budget of 476.1, we spent for the 344.4, which translated to 93.4%. Transfers for foreign government and international organizations, we've got a budget of 5.9 million. We spent 5.2 million, translating to 88.1%. The next line, higher education, we transferred 100% of that budget. Public corps and private enterprises, we had a budget of 61.9. We transferred 59.4, which translated to 88.7%. Payment for heritage assets, we have a budget of 92.4, and we have spent 83.3, translating to 90.1%. Budget for machinery and equipment, we had a budget of 11.4 million. We spent 11 million, translating to 96.8%. Software and other assets, there was 115,000. We have spent it all 100%. Payment for financial assets is here. These are the write-offs that we had incurred on the losses that we had incurred as a department. There we've got a budget of 14,000 and we have spent that in total 100%. Next slide. Here, Chairperson and committee members, we're showing the reasons, or we're giving reasons of these categories or economic classification per spending. As said before, that we had an 87.8 spending on the COE, that is compensation of employees. Mainly the difference of 46.5 million was caused by the vacancies that we had as a department at year end. If we remember, Chairperson and colleagues, that we couldn't continue with filling of vacancies, especially during the first few months of the hard lockdown, whereby there were no adverts that the department could do as per the directive that we had received from the Minister of Public Service and Administration, where there was a directive that as departments, we have to extend the closing dates of the vacancies or the posts that were already advertised. So this related in some delays, and unfortunately at the year end, we've got posts that were not finalized. So under COE, those are the percentages per program that translated to the spending of 87.8. The next slide will be economic classification, goods and services. Here we had a variance or unspent funds of 21.2 million due to the cancellation of departmental events that we had to cancel due to the declaration of the national COVID lockdown, which had an impact, high impact on our travel costs. Then we ended up with that variance. This slide shows how each programs have spent under their goods and services. Program 1, due to the shifting that we had done with the environments, that's why you see that we had spent 100% of the
goods and services budget, which was 3.4. Program 2, they had 56.8. They spent 43.3, which translates to 72.2%. Program 3, ACPD, they had a budget of 99.5 million, and then they spent 97.5, translating to 98%. HPP, which is Program 4, had a budget of 22.8, spending was 17.1, translating to 75.3. On average, goods and services, we ended up spending 95.6% of the budget. Thank you. Transfers to provinces. And here we've got a savings. Sorry, we didn't have a savings. We transferred 100% of the budget to the provinces. The budget was 1.2 billion and 100% of it was transferred. This slide is to show Chairperson and the members how the allocations of the library community grant per province. We can move to the next slide. And this one is also 100% transfer. There is no variance of the 368.1 for the mass participation sport development grant that was transferred to the provinces. Those are the allocations per province. We can move to the next slide. Departmental agencies. Here, this is our institutions that we have in the department. As we know that we've got 27 institutions, and there was a variance or unspent amount of 14.4 million due to one, the implementation of public PESP, Public Arts Presidential Employment Stimulus Package, where there were delays and there were savings, and also delays with the Isigo Museum Courtyard project due to COVID-19 restrictions. Also, these slides that are following under departmental agencies, they show the different allocations and the spending thereof. Let's move to the next slide. This is a continuation of other institutions for heritage institutions. Next slide. Next slide. Departmental agencies for libraries also is a continuation of departmental agencies. Let's move, Bongi. These are the agencies under Sport and Recreation and Development Program. Also, there was a transfer to both of them, 100%. Next slide. Departmental agencies for constitutional institutions. Also, we had spent almost 100% of their 100% of their transfers of their budget. Next slide. Then foreign government and international organizations. Here we had a variance of 705,000 or 705,000, mainly attributed to the fluctuation rate between the rand and pound towards the subscription fees that we had paid for Commonwealth Foundation. Then it translated in an 88.1% spending from the budget of 5.9, and the spending or the actual transfer was 5.2 million. Next slide. Households. Here we had a variance or unspent amount of 2.3 million due to the lockdown that necessitated to closure of schools. And this on the spending under ministerial bursaries, we didn't transfer all the amounts as budgeted. This resulted in us underspending. If we can check the line bursaries, non-employees, that is the ministerial bursary under scientific support, there was a budget of 5.1 and we spent 2.9, which translated to about 57%. Then on average, or in total, the spending under this classification under households, we had spent 89.7%. Next slide. Public corps and private enterprises, there was an underspending of 7 million due to the incomplete reports for the MGE beneficiaries that resulted in the department not transferring the second tranches at year end. These are the public corps where we had a budget of 61.9, and we ended up making transfer of 54.9, pardon me, which translated to 88.7%. Next slide. Non-profit institutions, these are the different entities that we make transfers to. We had a variance of 31.6 million due to the underspend, is due to the incomplete reports again that some Zanzi Golden or MGE recipients or beneficiaries not submitting by year-end, resulting in the department not transferring the second tranches, and the delays also in the implementation of the PSP program towards the creation of jobs for monitoring of compliance COVID-19 regulations in sport. So here, this shows the different institutions where transfers in others was made 100%, others not, but the total budget is 102.4, and we transferred 94.8, translating into 92.5%. Next slide, please. These are the transfers to other entities still under NPIs, BASA, Engelberg, Blind SA, and we transferred 100% of the budget under this category. Next slide. Again, these are entities or under this program 2 different sport federations who transferred 86.3%. Their budget was 174.9. We had transferred 150.9, translating to 86.3. 100% of the budget of New Love Life was transferred, and 100% of the Sports Trust budget was transferred. Next slide. Transfers to higher education institutions, we had transferred 100% of this budget of 5.8 to the various universities for the human language technology projects. Next slide. Under the economic classification heritage assets, we had spent 90.1% of the budget of 92.4 that was allocated here. The variance of 9.1 million is due to the National Archives Old Library, a final account not paid to DPW, to the service provider by DPW, as appointed company is owned by an alleged illegal foreigner, and Home Affairs and DPW are resolving this matter. Secondly, JL Dube House, there was time lost on account of local community disturbances on the site where the contractor had to suspend work on site due to the hostile takeover. Number 3, the OR Tambo Memorial Garden of Remembrance. The installation of the OR Tambo statue could not happen due to the ongoing investigation that the department had instituted, that which has not been completed. Lastly, Bulukwane Performing Arts Center, the visibility study for the project was only completed late in the financial year, and construction will only begin in February 2022. So those are the reasons that led to that budget not being fully spent. Next slide. Under machinery and equipment, we had a variance or underspending of 370,000 due to delays that had happened in the procurement of some IT equipment that we ended up spending 96.8% of that budget. Next slide. Move on. Then, as I said, Chairperson, the slides that would follow Program 1 to Program 4, here we're showing the breakdown of the spending per economic classification in a certain program. Program 1, Administration. This is the picture that we ended up at 98.3. May I not read line by line, Chairperson, because the reasons of this underspending are the ones that I have just summarized in all the economic classifications. Program 2 also, they had a budget, as said before, of 1 billion, and they spent 982.7 million, translating to 93.1%. Program 3. In this program, there was a budget of 1,6 or 1,599, and they spent 1,562, translating to 97.7%. Lastly, program 4, we had a budget of 2.1 billion and we spent 2.1 billion, translating to 99.2%. We had given the reasons of the underspending in all economic classifications. Thank you, Chairperson and members.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, DG. Are there additions that your team would like to make on the presentation?
No, Chairperson. We are fine.
Yeah, if none, thanks. Members, this is the presentation of the report by the department on the objectives that they set themselves in the past financial year, and the budget that was allocated to them that we supported, and how they've used that, how they used the budget to achieve the set goals. What I want to check for myself, Chairperson, is what is happening with what is the progress from what we got in the papers about Robben Island Museum? And Robben Island also is a heritage site. It really gives lots of people sleepless nights, and I'm one of those who are worried about what is happening with our flagship. They've been going through the reports. There've been instances of financial, what do they call this? Financial mismanagement by people in the department, by staff. What I want to check is how far are we in investigating some of these cases and making sure that we reduce the length of the cases that are, some of them have been identified by your internal control, and others, of course, by the AG. And what is the progress again with the legacy projects in terms of when do we think the investigations will end? If we have an idea with that, maybe that could be helpful. There are just generally worries about, the statements not being prepared in accordance with the Treasury regulations and the prescribed laws in terms of the PFMA. We need to really improve on those ones. Honourable members, the floor is open for further questions by the members who wants to engage with the department. Over to you. I see the hand of Honourable Dermaine Christians. Over to you, Honourable Christians.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just have a few questions. The first one is about the financial statements. Now, it was noted that there was an opening balance for irregular expenditure at the beginning of 2020-21 of 442.1 million. And then a further 3.8 million was incurred during this period, which is now under review. I just want to know as to what the investigations are around that irregular expenditure. Can we get more information about what that irregular expenditure was about? And, again, as the Chairperson also mentioned, consequence management, has that been implemented? How far is that? Fruitless and wasteful expenditure, at the beginning of the year, was also mentioned or noted as 89.6 million. Now, I take note of the fact that during this financial year, there was no fruitless and wasteful expenditure, but what is the report on that 89.6 million of the previous years, fruitless and wasteful expenditure? What has happened there? Can we get some feedback as to the progress on that, or the outcome of those investigations? And then the findings by the Auditor General, again, consequence management. It was mentioned or noted by the Auditor General that investigations were not conducted into a majority of the allegations of financial misconduct committed by departmental officials as required by the Treasury regulation. Why is that? Why are internal controls still deficient? Can we just get clarity on why investigations were not conducted and whether or not such investigations are still in the process of being conducted? Further along, also the AG also noted that there were internal audit unit referred some matters relating to legacy projects for further investigation by the Directorate, and these were referred to the walks. And if we can get feedback, how far the walks are, has the report been concluded? What has been the outcome of that investigation by the walks? Then program 2, I noted sadly there that there was a project, or there were several projects that were not completed, or the current status not completed in program 2. One of them is that Sarah Bartmann Center of Remembrance project, and that project started in 2014 already, and it was due for completion in 2019. Now, that was even supposed to be completed before the outbreak of the pandemic. What is happening there? Why are these projects not being completed? And what is the current financial status on especially the Sarah Bartmann Center of Remembrance? Is it over budget now? Are they still within budget? And how far is it from actual completion? Another project that is very worrisome is the moral regeneration movement. Now I see that there were 5 projects, but only 2 were implemented. Amongst those projects are projects like the gender-based violence, especially those linked to our young boy children and so on. Why were only 2 completed? When will the rest of these projects be completed? And I do believe that this moral regeneration movement projects are one of our most important projects in the country currently, but they have been battling to get this movement up and running. Can we get a little bit more information on that, and especially on the gender-based violence projects in program 3 that were not completed? Thank you, Chairperson. I will submit a few more questions in writing to the department. You were muted, Chairperson.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Honorable Ndongeni, you are next.
No.
Honorable Ndongeni, it's your chance. Yes.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, I do. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Hey. Okay, go. Sorry, Chair. It's a better technology. Sorry, Chair. I'm almost there. Sorry for the delay. Chair, I'm coming back, sorry.
Okay, is there any other? Okay, in the meantime, can we have answers to those first questions and then we can deal with your technical problems and then join them, get a second bite.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, for the questions from the members. The question on RIM, because fortunately I'm not alone, Chairperson, I will ask that the DDG and response to that, and DDG either Chikodamba or DDG can, but I can just at a high level indicate that we believe that Robben Island is at least on turning around the corner in this regard because of a number of reasons. One, I think when there was an outcry around the risks related to them shutting down and having the employees either laid off or their salaries cut, we can share with you, Honorable Chairperson, that Department intervened in this regard and saved Robben Island through the reprioritization of the budget, and then they were provided with the funding. Over and above that, the PSP also made some contribution. So the details I will ask that we do provide them through the DDG Chikodamba. But also,
teacher, I'm having a difficulty hearing. Your voice is too soft, or a bit low. If you could raise the volume a little bit. I thought it's my phone, but
music volume. Music volume.
Yeah,
No,
music volume
ask,
is not helping.
Now, let me ask Chairperson that DDG can or DDG Chikodamba, can you just take the questions relating to Robben Island, and then I will add if there is anything, and then CFO on the issue of the AFS is not prepared according to the PFMA that was raised by the Honorable Chairperson. And then on the issue of allegations on financial mismanagement in the department, Chairperson, we haven't had the issue of financial mismanagement directly leveled against the department, except where we're talking about irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, which we will give the detailed response. Maybe they will allow the CFO to start with that, as together with DDG Chikodamba, including consequence management. And then we will get back to that. And then maybe Mr. Langefeld and DDG can talk to the legacy projects and the delays, because there has been intervention by the minister engaging on a minister to minister level around the challenges we've been facing on Sarah Bartmann, and in ensuring that this project is built back on track. But I will just for specificity ask that my colleagues talk to that, and that includes the issue of the hawks, then MRM also. We seem to be having questions more for one or two of the deputy directors general. DDG Chikodamba, wanna start, or CFO? Yes, DDG Chikodamba.
Okay.
The request was that you show your face and then you can disappear and continue, so that the honorable members see this is not a robot.
Okay, thank you. Hope my face is showing.
Yes.
I'm not having a good network, so I'll take off the video. On Robben Island, writing on the first level of response that has been given by DG, I could say moving backwards in terms of issues of governance. If we're going by what has come out of their audit report, They have come out with a good unqualified audit report. If we go to the issues that have been raised in terms of the forensic audit, the forensic audit was completed indeed. And of course, the board or the council of REM is still looking at some of the issues that were raised out of the forensic audit with a plan that they are working on to address some of the things. I think of the people that were named in terms of officials in the forensic audit, remaining now is just the CFO in REM. The CEO, the contract expired, it came to an end. But of course, the forensic audit eventually in terms of the last report or in terms of the last decision by the council, it's a decision that they are handling and they are reporting on to the ministry. They have come to the minister to report on their decision regarding the last decision, not to further pursue the issues that were initially raised as allegations against the officials. And in terms of the budget constraints, yes, they have experienced severe budget pressures during the COVID time. And as DG was saying, in terms of just salvaging the situation such that they can delay the implementation of Section 189, which is the laying off of staff members. The cushioning that was provided, financial cushioning by the department, it assisted them. But they are quite aware of the fact that we are still riding up and down on the wave of COVID. So clearly, they are still in a delicate space, but currently they are working on a plan to review their business model, trying to see if they can have some commercial activities within their business plan, which can assist them in improving or adding or augmenting their revenue through other activities. So they are currently now starting to work on that. I think on that one, I am leaving REM and I am going to the question on consequent management in relation to the department, DSEC. Yes, indeed, our report is referring to some consequent management not implemented, but I think as a background to that is the fact that the year under audit had a number of cases that had to be looked into. If I can mention to the members, in that specific year, the department handled about 62 cases. Of those 62 cases, only 4 were not finalized. And then close to the end of the audit, there were just another additional 6. And then it started the year with 10 cases that have not been allocated. So that is out of a total of 68 cases that it was handling in the year. And the number is big because it is also a legacy number that is coming from the different legacy departments, the 2 departments that were before, and at times reconstructing evidence after the measure of the 2 departments. It took a turn of some delays during the measure stages of the 2 departments. But currently, even the 10 cases that were not yet attended to are currently being attended to. Some of them have already been closed. And then moral regeneration. Yes, some of the activities in the year under audit were affected by COVID-19 in terms of the protocols and restrictions, because most of their activities are engagement activities where they go out and have events of different kinds. But I do not want to say there have not been challenges. There are some issues that we have been grappling with as a fund relating to the way of reporting to us. And these are issues that we are now looking into, trying to monitor them in terms of the moral regeneration movement, to monitor them closely. Yes, I think I can stop there, Tishu.
Can I ask CFO?
Thank you, DG. The matters that I would be responding to are one, the AFS not prepared in accordance with the prescripts. Yes, unfortunately, Chairperson and members of the Select Committee, the AFS that we submitted to the AGSA at end of May last year had some misstatements, which we had now ended up correcting at the end of the audit. Mainly here were errors like you'd find that the balancing or the outer year balance was not pulling in an Excel spreadsheet, because when we were reporting, we had not yet finalized the transfer of data from the old former SRSA, that's Sport and Recreation database, to the BAS that we are using, the GL that we are using of the former DAC. So we were using an Excel spreadsheet where we were combining the balances. So one of the errors were there, which AG picked. Unfortunately, it was a manual system that we're using, whereby we had to create those spreadsheets ourselves for the purpose of reporting. But it's safe to say that by the end of October this year, just before the audit, we had finalized the merging of the departments or of the database from the former Sport database to the former DAC, because we did not start afresh our financial systems. So we had to merge the balances. That was done correctly. And in the current year going forward, we saying to the Select Committee, or we giving assurance that that error margin or that risk of having an error would be eliminated, because now when preparing the financial statements, we just download the trial balance as is from the system. There are no manual additions that we have to do. Secondly, another misstatement was a contingent liability that we had overstated one of our contingent liabilities. Unfortunately, Chairperson and members, the process of getting confirmations of our balances, it took longer than expected, such that in the current year, to try and avert that, we are starting now with beginning of January to say legal services must start that process of getting confirmations, so that when we disclose balances of cases that are still having possible liabilities or possible contingent assets to the department, we've got confirmations, because AG doesn't just take figures, we need to give them supporting documents. So those were the big amounts that led to the adjustments. The other adjustment, which was a small amount of the accruals, unfortunately, we had used a statement, because as we were preparing the financials, we had not yet received the invoices, and there was an invoice that was not included on the statement that we were using as at the end of March. Unfortunately, AG, when reviewing the financials, they would review as at the date of submission, which in this case was at the end of May. So they looked at all those invoices that were subsequently received in the department, but unfortunately were not on the statement that we had used on that DPW. So we had also an adjustment there. Going forward this year, we said we need to send confirmation letters on time and also ensure that we check again after the closure of the balances or of the payments that would have been captured, and we eliminate the misstatement in the accruals. So that what we have done. And also what we have done this year, Chairperson, we would have a project team or a project plan which we would need to follow for the preparation of the AFS. And also in our project plan, we're building in an ample time for internal audit to assist us also at reviewing the financial statements before we submit to the Auditor General. Unfortunately, in the year that we are reporting on, the time was very limited as unfortunately COVID was affecting us now and then of the infections and the moving away from the department. And our time, unfortunately, was really affected. We were not able to review or give internal audit on time their financial statements so that they can review. What we're planning to do, at least we need to give internal audit plus minus 2 weeks to review before we finally submit to audit committee and before we submit to the AGSA. So that is what we're planning to do. On the matters of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, as the member correctly said, in the year under review, there were no new matters under the category of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. On the 89 million matters that were there, some of them are part of the investigations that were being done and finalized during the year. And some matters we will be requesting for condonement, but those that were referred outside to criminal investigations, those are the matters that we still having to make follow-ups so that at the end we can ask for condoning of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure from the cases that were already investigated. The new matters on the irregular expenditure category, Chairperson and members. One, when the department, the former departments closed, they had irregular expenditures that were for contracts that were already disclosed as irregular at the end of 1920. So in 2020, 2021, as we're continuing with those contracts or those payments, we have to disclose those amounts as irregular. That is part of the 3.1. The new matters that were there are matters that AG picked that we had not picked up as a department, unfortunately, which are small amounts whereby you'd find that maybe a payment was made after an acting of someone has been has lapsed, and an acting letter of the new member or the new person, or the payment was not signed by the new appointed person. So we are working with HR to ensure that for all SMS acting, that information, we put it on a plan or a project plan whereby SCM, as they're processing payments, they can do the cross-checking, because sometimes we find the acting or Sibongile Mondile had ended and the payment was submitted to Sibongile Mondile, and then they process that payment. So those errors or those mistakes like that, that's what landed us in having some matters being classified as irregular expenditure, which, Chairperson, we have not yet finalized the investigations of the new matters, as we just closed. Unfortunately, the audit ended a little bit late this year, but safe to say there is a task team that was instituted or that is sitting to look at these matters. In the current year or the year 2020-21, we had 7 matters that are new that are adding to the old balances of the irregular expenditure. The committee would sit and review and make recommendations to DG on how these matters should be handled, whether there are people that are found that are liable for consequence management, or also assess if there was a loss, and then we can do other steps of trying to request National Treasury to condone these matters. We're hoping that even on the old balances, we're gonna write to National Treasury to request
Recording
for condonement
stopped.
of
Recording
other
in
matters,
progress.
because already consequence management, as DDG has stated, that there were investigations on the old balances, and there were people that have been disciplined where the consequence or their disciplinary actions have been finalized. So we are in the process of writing to National Treasury to request condonment on those matters where investigations has been finalized. The matter of the 30-day payment, if I were to comment, DG on Jefferson, that one payment that we were found that we paid it under 33 days or on the 33rd day, that invoice was sent back to the end user because supply chain had questions on it. But unfortunately, the company or that service provider could not give us a new invoice because they said their system could not reissue new invoices. And when AG is testing or when we're counting, because when the invoice is received, it gets stamped, the receive date in the department. So unfortunately, those matters that were resolved late. And then the payment when was authorized on the 19th of September, because we had received that payment in August 2020. And then when it was authorized, unfortunately, it landed us outside 30 days. The correct way is to get a new invoice and stamp it afresh, because that invoice, initial invoice, we would deem it as not being finalized or as it not being a correct invoice to process. But unfortunately, that had happened, Chairperson. We had we are speaking to our colleagues or our officials that are processing payments to be sensitive, and we're checking every time before a payment is authorized that it's within 30 days so that we avoid the matter of paying suppliers over 30 days. Thank you, DG and Chairperson. I hope I've answered all the questions.
Can I ask the colleagues, Chairperson, to be quite brief? Ivan and then DDG Khan, just to the point, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair and members and colleagues, and good afternoon to everyone. The questions that I will briefly respond to relate to the legacy projects. Both the Chair and Honorable Christians asked on the progress with regard to the legacy projects, the investigations, and particularly the matters that were referred to the hawks. The hawks, the matters that were referred to the hawks was a long list of matters, but the ones that relate to the legacy projects are with regard to three legacy projects: the Enyokeni Cultural Precinct, the Jel Dube project, and the Nwamitwa Cultural Precinct. Those are the three that relate to the legacy projects. We have asked the hawks to prioritize those projects given the repeat AG findings on those projects and our desire to have those projects and the consequences around those projects finalized. The hawks requested a sworn affidavit from the department through internal audit, confirming the details of the reports and the recommendations on those three projects, and the sworn affidavit was provided, and for the Hawks then to continue then with the prioritization of the investigations on those three projects. And we are still awaiting through our internal audit, as they are our liaison, interacting with the Hawks and providing feedback on whatever progress is provided on the investigations. Then going back to the Sarah Bartmann project, which is the delays on the Sarah Bartmann project, and also just adding that the latest that we have from the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure and DDG Khan may have even later figures, but the latest that I'm aware of is that progress on site before the contractor disestablished the site and the contract with the contractor was terminated was at over 80%. In terms of the budget, whether they are within budget or over budget, there has been various escalations, of course, given the length of the project, and these escalations have been escalations both in terms of the work, but also, of course, in terms of the cost. And all of these escalations have been approved by Public Works and the department and Treasury. So it, in terms of the original budget of the project and where it is now, there has been increases from the original budget, which was at 164 million, which was the original budget, and the latest cost of the project, and once again, DDG Khan might have even later figures, is that it is at 210 million. But of course, this does not include the items that are in dispute with the contractor. I just thought that in addition to what has already been said and what DDG Khan may still say, I would add those two inputs. Thanks, DG and Chair.
DG Khan?
Thank you.
We must be brief. The chairperson indicated 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, DG. Good afternoon, Chairperson, and good afternoon to the members. Chairperson, I'm not going to speak too much about the details of Sarah Bartmann. I think my colleague has spoken about it, just to indicate that the Minister had raised these issues of the performance of many of the infrastructure projects with the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. And we've written to her, and then we had a meeting with her as well. And we have then indicated to the Minister of Public Works that the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture wants to take over the management of Sarah Bartmann and also the HVAC, which is our archives project. We had indicated also the Robben Island Museum. I'm going to talk about the Robben Island Museum as it was raised by the chairperson before I give some more information on the Sarah Bartmann. But if you look at the Robben Island Museum, chairperson, you know that in 2018, just as a background, several meetings took place with the DGs and Robben Island wanted to take over being the implementing agent for both the capital works and the maintenance projects. And in 2020, DPWI approached a shared implementation approach and between RIM and DPWI, and they looked at some of the projects was the desalination water plant projects, the sewage treatment plant project. The project would require special heritage solutions such as the Blue Quarry and the projects that were below 500,000. Because, you know, the department had no jurisdiction to grant approval to the Robben Island Museum to take over these functions. There were still some unresolved issues by the DPWI, and this was the appointment of a service provider for the facilities management, which was due in February 2021, and there was no indication about the appointment of a new contract. But Chairperson, be that as it may, some progress has been noted in that area, where after the meeting with the minister, with the ministers, the DPWI then had a new team that was deployed from the head office, led by one of the DDGs to fast track the implementation of the projects at Robben Island, and especially the facilities, the total facilities management. DPWI also then approved a budget of 113 million for that project, and they started a procurement process, and they provided a execution plan, which started, with the bid advertisement process, advertisement process starting in September, and then they were hoping to finalize the awarding of the winning company at the end of October. Last week there was a steering committee meeting, and I think Chairperson, at the time when they were taking over some of the projects, the steering committee was dysfunctional. But since then, the steering committee is now up and running. So the steering committee had a meeting, and they were hoping that this awarding would have been done by the end of October. However, the report from the Bid Adjudication Committee indicated that there were some technical issues. They would have to go back to National Treasury to look at that, but they could not do an award. But be that as it may, the process was through a closed bid, because they do have a bouquet of services, and so it didn't go out to an open tender. So they will be able to finalize and rectify some of the hitches that they have come across. In the meantime, they still have the interim arrangement of different service providers providing maintenance at the facility on the island. And they're hoping that, in the next couple of weeks, they'll be able to finalize a tender process. With regard to the Sarah Bartmann project, as I indicated, Chairperson, the department had indicated to the both ministers had agreed that the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture will take over the management of the Sarah Bartmann project. The DGs met, and further to the DGs meeting, we've had a meeting with the DGG to DGD and other executives and management of DPWI and ourselves, to look at how we're going to implement this project. I think first and foremost, we needed to get a handover report from DPWI in terms of the Sarah Bartmann project, and to look at what the scope of work is going to be going forward. In a meeting that we had with them 2 weeks ago, they had indicated that, they are willing to, they gave us, in fact, the minister had written to our minister to give us some options of how the management of the facilities, the handover will take place. And one of the options was there'll be co-management. So we met with them to just get an idea and indicate how the co-management will work. And we're still finalizing the details. So we needed to understand roles and responsibilities, who would sign, how would the service providers be appointed. The indication was that there are contracts that are already in place with some organizations that can take over the management of the project. So there are still some gray areas that we're working with DPWI around that. In the meantime, our concern was what was happening on the ground. We were assured that there was a 24-hour security in place, to safeguard the project as it is, so that there's no vandalism and theft around what is existing. And once we finalize all of the other issues, there'll be a seamless process of continuing with the project. So that is where we are at. At this stage, we'll not be able to say, I won't be able to tell you whether there'll be any additional funding, as Mr. Langeveld has indicated, until we get all of those details finalized in terms of the management of the project going forward. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Thank you.
Yeah. Chairperson. Chairperson, we're in your hands. Hello, Chairperson.
Hi, DG.
We are in your hands.
Members, I got cut off.
We can hear you, Chairperson. When you said, we could hear you.
Oh, yeah. No, the problem is the connection. Yeah, let me do this. I think are there any other additions to the answers given? I got cut off, very sorry.
No, Chairperson, we were just confirming that on your major concern of the RIM, we provided the 59 million to save jobs, as well as make sure that salaries are not cut and the shutdown. And then there was a breakdown, yes, of the going forward, the securing of the budget to maintain and upgrade, and also look after the projects that were there. And we gave the breakdown of the both work as well as the maintenance budget, and that there are governance structures that are doing oversight to monitor the project, Chairperson. Therefore, we believe that with Robben Island, everything is now on track to make sure that that is restored to its glory. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. If there are other questions that members would like to ask, we'll do that in writing and send them to your good selves. Yeah, if there is no any other matter, I think we should go to close this part of the meeting and release you, DG, and the team. Sure. Our office, our constituency office is near taxi rank, so so I'm trying to move from the office to outside. It even gets worse. Yeah. Let's release you, DG, and then we'll move to the administrative part of our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable members. Have a great evening. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Noltando. Noltando. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, minutes of the meeting of the meeting of the 24th. Any matters arising? If there's no matter arising, any mover for adoption of this minutes? The minutes have been with us for quite. The minutes have been with us for quite some time. Hello?
Ndongeni moves for the adoption of the
Ndongeni
minutes.
moves. Any seconder?
Lisha.
Oh, Honorable Senyanye Lihihi. Thank you very much. Is there any other matter, Noltando?
Nothing else, Chair.
If there's nothing, let me take this opportunity to thank the members for having stayed there. There was no break today. We went from 10 until 5 o'clock. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Bye, Danke.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, bye. Oh.
Recording stopped.
Da la la la.